Battlebit Remastered is the ultimate Battlefield clone that is considered by many people the Battlefield that we wanted and deserved. It is a remarkable result of 3 friends working together on a passion project for 7 years and succeeding like no one else. And despite it being a copycat, it has its own unique values that Battlefield probably could never have. But regardless the game's crazy success, many people say it's quickly dying, but I'll cover that topic later in the video. For now, let's see how Battlebit managed to surpass the game it copied. The project was created by only 3 people, Sergeant Okidoki, Velasquez and the Liquid Horse, over the course of 7 years. Before starting the development, they only had experience of modding the game unturned, and, as you can see, they definitely were inspired by its unique looks. Battlebit was their first ever independent game, and it was created with the premise of providing something similar to Battlefield in Squad and making it as accessible as possible, since they themselves had experienced the never-ending issues of owning potato setups. Since they were pretty much noobs at creating standalone games, the development process wasn't the smoothest in terms of everything. The first real testing was done in around 2018, and the game did not turn out to be great to say the least. Players experienced lags, both on client and server side, and the game overall just wasn't as fun as it was initially thought to be. It was leaning hard into the hardcore roots of games like Squad, which wasn't what many people expected from a game looking like a Roblox mod, and it was not that engaging in general. Gameplay was pretty slow rather than dynamic. It was a really big turning point for the game, since the devs have realized that their game is not successful, people did not like it. And while many indie devs would probably either give up completely and move on to other projects, or would just push the game into the same narrative and destroy it even further, the Battlebit devs made a really smart decision. They've decided to rethink the game from scratch, now leaning into more casual gameplay similar to Battlefield, rather than a full-on military sim. I can't say for them obviously, but changing the whole direction of the project on the go, despite you imagining it to be a completely different thing, especially after a really bad release, is an extremely hard decision to make, and it wasn't even the only time where they had to do something like that, so huge respect to the devs. After that, they've spent 4 more years polishing their game more and more. They had multiple delays on beta tests just due to them wanting to make sure everything works just fine and that people don't get a shitty product even on tests. They also had a Patreon for support, which according to the devs' words, brought around $10,000 every month, and the devs took as minimal amounts as possible from that, spending more than $5,000 just on the servers so people could keep playing. So, in 2022, after months of preparing just to make sure everything goes right, they do their first open playtest. It is safe to say that it was an absolute blast. People loved the game. By the 3rd week of the tests, the amount of people who tried out the game was around 100,000. For an indie game public playtest, it is an absolutely outstanding number. After the test was concluded, they spent 1 more year balancing out the gameplay and fixing existing issues, as well as producing more new content for the final early access release. That brings us to the June of 2023, where the die-hard Battlefield fans, along with thousands of other followers of the project, get ready for the final push and the Steam release. The June 15th comes around and it happens. 30,000 people playing at the same time. In 2 weeks the number turns to almost 90,000. The game is literally perfect. You have good weapon gameplay, 127 on 127 player servers, thought out level design, different game modes, thought out classes, tanks, cars, helicopters, big explosions, destruction, and the goddamn proximity chat.
What? If you already...
Bang your nades around the corner point!
No way! No way! Oh shit! Done. Oh yeah!
All of that for only $15 if not less in some countries, and only 2 GB of space on your PC. Battlebit becomes the most selling game on Steam. In 2 weeks it makes $27 million gross revenue. Everyone and their grandma now knows what Battlebit is. And this is where I want to remind you once again that the game was made by 3 people, with the 3rd one actually coming in only around 1 year before the final release, and it basically looks like Roblox. You cannot find the right words for such a success. It is beyond outstanding. This is why you have to love indie games. So, let's get a bit more in depth on why the game became so successful. I'll be speaking more from my own experience, but I know that many people would agree with what I am going to say. First of all, is the performance. As I've said, the devs made a big emphasis on that, and successfully managed to make the game run on any shithole PC you might have had. And by run, I don't just mean launching it, but actually experiencing all that with a smooth frame rate. You might say that with such graphics it's not that hard to do, which is partly true of course, but if you actually take a more in-depth peek into the effects and details this game has, you would understand that the devs brought this type of visuals to probably its maximum potential. And you better don't forget that the game is 127 on 127 people, and contributing to that chaos is destruction. Battlebit has destructible walls, destructible buildings and Levolution, basically combining all the best destruction features from all the Battlefield entries into one. The vehicles like tanks and helicopters were a very important thing in Battlefield, but in my experience in Battlebit, I wouldn't say they had that much going for them, and for me it wasn't a bad thing. You still can drive and fly, and it is still powerful, but not to the extent where you can't do anything on a capture point, because there are two tanks dominating everything around it. I haven't used the mass destruction vehicles a lot, because I enjoy the infantry action way too much to even consider those, but to be honest, I can't even be sure enough if that was due to a good vehicle balance in the game, or due to the crazy good level design this game has. The maps are medium in size, and compared to Battlefield 2042, which released 2 years prior and was horribly received, you didn't have to spend the whole match running and seeing nobody. In Battlebit, it was pretty easy to move around the map, action was everywhere, because you gotta remember that the game has 254 people on the server, and the interest points themselves are pretty well made. I don't have a single map that I would say I hate. Hello to the Caspian Border, Metro and Locker from Battlefield. The guns feel great when shooting, with a real-life gun expert even saying that the work done on it is much better than many AAA titles have done. The sounds are good enough too, animations are beautiful, graphics despite being blocky actually look pretty good overall in my opinion. And there is one more thing that contributed to the game's success immensely, that Battlefield did not have at all: the proximity chat. People were destroying themselves with those screams after dying, calling for a medic or whatever. And, of course, you had the portable speakers with you in the helicopters. It was hilarious and pointed out by almost everyone who has ever spoken about this game. The proximity chat made the casual feel of the game even more noticeable, which was very important. That vibe basically revived the old days of Battlefield 3 for me, where most people are just having fun, doing their own thing without tryharding like crazy for rating points or whatever. No microtransactions in the game, no rated matchmaking, just pure Battlebit gameplay with people having one of their best gaming experiences in many years. This is what people desperately needed and missed. And if you watched one of my previous videos about another game that was called the Battlefield Killer before release, you might remember that there's apparently still one thing that is more important than all of this, and it's a thing that the devs made a big emphasis on too, that being the launch day and the server capabilities. Handling 90,000 concurrently playing people is usually not something that indie devs can even dream of, but with great funds management and the dedication of the devs to make it all real, there weren't big problems on the release, which allowed the game to grow. Besides that, the devs also kept decreasing the price for the game so more people can hop on it, taking the difference of prices in different countries into account. With all that combined, we get massive success, which definitely not everyone would think is possible. But if you remember, I've also said in the beginning that many people consider the game to be dying? And to find out if that's actually true, we are going to do a massive research with interviews and fuck no, it's not dying. And you'll think I'm the weird one when I tell you that the play count has dropped from 90,000 on release to around 7,000 half a year later. Yes, it's a massive decrease, I totally understand that. But first of all, what makes a game die? I would say it's not being able to either play the game at all, the game stagnating for years with no big updates, or just the game sucking hard in general. And there is no checks for anything here in Battlebit. 7,000 players concurrently is around 15 to 20 full 127 on 127 servers that you can access at any given time. There is no issue of not being able to play at all. Updates are still being released and the game is as good as it was. The only actually big thing that is kind of missing is the proximity chat fun and the casual feel. Since now that the time has passed and many people moved on from the game, tryhards are far more noticeable, and not that many people use the proximity chat that much compared to release. But does it really make the game bad? At least for me, it does not at all. I still play and have just as much fun is months back. I understand why people can say that the game is dying, with the player count drop and some balancing issues. But come on, 5 to 7,000 people for an indie game is an insane number to have. Battlefield 2042 has 20,000 even after fixing the game since the release. It's not that far from Battlebit. I don't see it dying anytime soon. There's just not enough reasoning for it in my opinion. Which once again means that 3 people pretty much destroyed a 20-year-old franchise with a blocky looking game with no prior experience of making games. It was a 7-year journey that has brought hundreds of thousands of players, immense amount of fun and gaming experience that we didn't have probably since the Battlefield 4 times. I'm extremely grateful to the devs just for managing all this, and I hope the AAA industry learns something from it. Be nice to players and give them what they actually want and ask for, and you'll simply succeed. Also, if you want a video on indie games in general, you can watch my previous one, where I talk more in depth on what makes them so good. Thank you for watching this one. Sub, leave a like, and see you next time.